When I inherited my grandparents' 900K estate, I quietly moved it into a trust, just in case. I was always the quiet one in my family. The girl who never made a scene, never talked back, never got in the way. Everyone thought I'd fold when things got ugly. They were wrong. When my grandparents passed, they left me everything. The house, the savings, the shares, just under 900 grand, all in my name. Why? Because when they needed help, I was there. I drove them to appointments, paid their bills, sat with them when no one else bothered to call. But my brother, he showed up for Christmas selfies and vanished until next year. And Mom, she'd just sigh and cover for him every time he maxed out another card or crashed another borrowed car. When Grandpa's will was read and only my name was on it, I saw Mom's face twist like I'd stolen something that should have been hers to give away. That was the moment I knew what was coming. House was the crown jewel, an old Victorian. Deep red bricks, ivy crawling up the sides, worth a fortune in our booming neighborhood. But instead of moving in, I stayed in my tiny apartment across town and got to work. I found a lawyer, built an airtight trust, moved the entire estate into it, house savings, everything. I paid extra to make it invisible, and I told no one. For a while, they played nice. Mom dropped hints about how unfair it was. My brother texted me asking to use the pool. It doesn't even have one. I just smiled and nodded. Let them think I was clueless. Then one weekend, I was at the house trimming the front hedges when Mom's car pulled in. Out jumped my brother, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Mom followed, clutching a clipboard like she was ready to cut the first ribbon on her brand new project. He smirked. "We've got some news." Mom stepped forward. "Fake sweet, we spoke to a lawyer. Turns out Grandpa made a mistake. The house should have gone to both of you. We've already fixed it." Then my brother whipped out a folded paper. "We transferred the title. It's in my name now. You'll need to be out by Friday. No hard feelings, right?" I just stared at them, smiled, nodded. Got it. 2 days later, they came back with a moving truck like I just rolled over. But when they stepped out, they didn't see boxes. They saw me on the porch, arms crossed, standing next to a man in a Navy suit with a county badge clipped to his belt. He looked right at my brother. "Are you the one who filed this transfer?" My brother froze. "Yeah." So the man flipped open a folder. "This property is held in an irrevocable trust. Any claim to transfer it is fraudulent. That's a felony." Mom's smile cracked. There must be some mistake. I cut her off. "You forged a title using Grandpa's old deed. You thought I'd be stupid enough to let it slide." The mover stood there awkwardly while the suit explained the fraud report, the charges, the trespassing notice. My brother's face drained white. Mom sputtered about misunderstandings. I didn't say a word. They left empty-handed, but they weren't done. Days later, I got a letter from Mom's new lawyer demanding a payout. 150 grand, joint ownership of the house, plus a monthly allowance for her emotional distress. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I hired a better lawyer. She dug up every forgery, every fake notary stamp, every shady online title registry. She filed broad claims. My brother's real estate job found out his license was frozen within days. Then Mom started whispering lies to the rest of the family. That I'd manipulated Grandpa, that I'd tricked him when he was sick. I found out from my cousin, who sent me screenshots of Mom's late-night calls. So, I gathered every receipt, the trust papers, the forged documents, the lawyer letters, the texts. Then I sent it all, one neat folder, to every single relative. Mom had poisoned 27 people. No drama, just facts. Most saw the truth. Some called me crying, some blocked me. Didn't matter. The lie was dead. My brother lost his job, his license, And now he's stuck explaining a fraud charge to every employer who Googles him. Mom dropped her lawsuit and crawled back into silence. She knows she can't touch me again. Last night, I walked through that old Victoria in my house. I ran my fingers along the walls my grandparents built and whispered, when I inherited my grandparents' $900,000 estate. I didn't throw a party or buy a fancy car. Instead, I quietly moved everything into an airtight trust, just in case. I've always been the quiet one in the family. It's the one who doesn't raise her voice, who avoids conflict, who keeps her head down. To them, I was the forgettable one, the girl who didn't make waves. But what they didn't know was that I don't break, I prepare. And when the time came, I was ready. My grandparents raised me more than my own parents did when I was a teen. I spent weekends driving them to doctor's appointments, picking up their prescriptions, balancing their checkbooks when Grandpa's hands started shaking too much to write. I never did it expecting anything in return. I just loved them, and I knew they needed someone who actually gave a damn. My mom was always too busy, and my brother. He showed up once a year, usually with some new girlfriend and a phone in hand for the perfect Christmas selfie before vanishing again. So, when my grandparents passed and their will was read, everyone was stunned except me. They left everything to me. The house, the savings, the investment accounts. All just under $900,000 in total, placed entirely in my name. It was shocking for everyone else, but not for me. They gave it to the person who showed up, the one who was there, not the ones who cared more about appearances. The house was the crown jewel, a beautifully preserved Victorian, the kind of place realtors drool over. Red brick, white trim, ivy crawling up the stone. Tucked into a now trendy neighborhood where prices had exploded over the last decade. I could have moved in, but I didn't. I kept living in my modest apartment across town and started putting protections in place. I hired a sharp estate lawyer, moved everything into an irrevocable trust under my name, and made sure every piece of documentation was rock solid. The trust was invisible to public record. No one knew. And I liked it that way. At first, my family tried the passive-aggressive route. My mom would leave voicemails saying, "Your brother misses you," or "You should really think about sharing the house. It's what your grandparents would have wanted." My brother sent texts about how he'd always dreamed of restoring an old home, or asked if he could use the pool. It doesn't even have one. I responded with neutral politeness. Let them believe I was naive. Then it escalated. One Saturday, I was trimming the hedges at the house when Mom pulled up with my brother. He stepped out grinning like he'd just won a lawsuit. Mom followed, holding a clipboard like she was running a renovation show. "We've got news," he said. "We talked to a lawyer. Turns out Grandpa made a mistake on the will. The house should have been left to both of us. We've already fixed it." Then he pulled out a folded document. "We transferred the title. It's in my name now. You'll need to be out by Friday. No hard feelings, right?" I stared at them, smiled, nodded. Got it? What they didn't realize was that their title transfer was a legal joke. 2 days later, they returned with a moving truck. But instead of boxes and furniture, they found me standing on the porch with a man in a dark suit, my lawyer's investigator badge clipped to his belt. He addressed my brother directly. "Are you the one who submitted this title change?" My brother blinked, then nodded slowly. The man pulled out a folder. "This property is held in an irrevocable trust. Any attempt to alter ownership without authorization is fraudulent. That's a felony." My mom's expression shattered. "There must be a mistake," she said, voice shaking. "No," I said, calmly. "You forged Grandpa's old deed. You thought I'd roll over. You thought wrong." The moving crew just stood there in stunned silence while the investigator handed them a trespassing notice. My brother's face drained of all color. They left with their tails between their legs. But the war wasn't over. A week later, I received a letter from a lawyer, my mom's this time demanding joint ownership of the house, $150,000 in cash, and a monthly stipend for my mom's emotional distress. I didn't scream. I didn't break down. I hired a better lawyer. She found every shred of fraud. Fake notary stamps, forged signatures, false filings. My brother's real estate license was suspended within days. Investigations opened. Then my mom, in a last-ditch effort, started spreading lies to extended family that I had manipulated Grandpa while he was sick. That I'd tricked them into signing things they didn't understand. I didn't respond with gossip. I responded with truth. I collected everything legal paperwork, forged documents, texts, screenshots of calls and packaged it all into a single file. Then I emailed it to every single relative she had lied to. 27 people. No dramatics, just facts. Some relatives apologized. Some stayed silent. A few blocked me. I didn't care. The lie had no legs left. My brother is now unemployed, his license permanently revoked, and he'll have to explain a fraud charge for the rest of his life. Mom dropped the lawsuit and stopped calling. I assume she's still sulking somewhere, whispering her sob story to anyone who will listen. But me? Last night, I walked through that old Victoria in my house. I ran my fingers along the walls my grandparents built with their hands. I stood by the window where Grandma used to wave goodbye every time I drove off, and I whispered. I kept it safe. They thought I was weak. They were wrong. Story 2. Title: I got my wife pregnant in high school. My parents kicked me out. Get out. You've disgraced us. I raised my son alone with my wife for years. Then they showed up. The moment they saw my son, they froze. What? What is this? Chapter 1. The night. Everything fell apart. I still remember the exact words my father screamed as he pointed toward the front door. Get out. Get out of this house and don't ever come back. You've disgraced this family. I was 17. My crime. I got my high school girlfriend Lily pregnant. We'd been together for almost 2 years at that point. The kind of love where you sneak out windows and write notes in each other's lockers. Young love, raw and real. And one night in the backseat of my dad's old Ford, we crossed that invisible line. We were scared. Sure, but we didn't run. We owned it, or tried to. Lily's parents disowned her, too. Said she had ruined her future. My mother didn't even look me in the eye as I packed my bag. Just stood there silently, tears streaking her face while my father spat venom. That night, we slept in a cheap motel room with $50 between us and a baby growing inside the only person who still looked at me with love. We got married in secret 2 weeks later. Just us, a justice of the peace, and the promise that no matter what happened, we'd raise our son together. And we did. We named him Aiden, and he became my entire world. I worked 2 jobs. Stocking shelves at night, cooking in the mornings. Lily babysat, took night classes, sewed clothes from thrift store scraps to sell on Etsy. We built a home from nothing. Not a perfect one, but one full of love, warmth, and survival. No help from anyone, especially not my parents, not a call, not a letter, not even a damn Merry Christmas for 8 straight years. And I told myself I was fine with that until last Saturday. Lily was out shopping. Aiden was playing video games. I was making lunch. Then there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, I froze. My parents, both of them, standing on my porch. Like ghosts from another life. My father looked older, my mother thinner, pale, but their eyes still the same unreadable cold. "Can we come in?" my mom asked quietly. I didn't answer. I stepped aside. They walked in slowly, taking in the small, worn-down living room. The baby photos on the wall, the drawings taped to the fridge. And then Aiden walked in. He froze. They stared, and then their faces changed. My mother clutched my father's arm. My father's mouth dropped open. He stepped forward and said almost in a whisper, "What? What is this?" And that's when I realized they hadn't come to apologize. They'd come because they just discovered something about the son I raised, something that shattered their reality. Chapter 2. That boy isn't just your son. A teen blinked as he looked at the two strangers in our living room. He was polite, even if confused. "Hi, who are you?" My mother stepped forward first. Her lips trembled. I cut her off. "These are old family members just visiting." Aiden nodded slowly and ran back to his room. I heard the door click shut. As soon as he was gone, the masks fell. My father's voice was horsey-ro. "That boy, he look like me?" I asked, arms folded. He shook his head. "Number, not just you. He looks exactly like your grandfather." That caught me off guard. "Excuse me?" My mother sat down slowly. Her hands were shaking. "There's something we never told you," she said. "We didn't think we ever needed to, but when we saw his photo, we knew we had to come." "What the hell are you talking about?" My dad sighed. "It's your grandfather." My father wasn't who we said he was. He was a very wealthy man, estranged from us for decades. We told everyone he died broke, but he didn't. He just left everything behind and started over. "And now?" I asked, my voice low. My mom looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "He died last month. No spouse, no other heirs, but there's a will and a DNA clause." A silence fell. My pulse began to race. "You're saying, Aiden?" My father nodded. He single quotes as the only living descendant with a direct DNA match to him. That means legally, everything he owned goes to your son. His estate, property, trust accounts. It's worth millions. My heart thudded in my chest. I could hardly breathe. "And why are you telling me this now?" I asked, already knowing the answer. My mother's voice cracked. "Because the trustees reached out and they need the legal guardian of the heir of Aiden to help manage the estate. But if you refuse, if you cut us out, we lose everything." There it was. They hadn't come back because they loved me, not because they regretted kicking me out. Not to meet their grandson out of pride. They came back for the money, the inheritance. They would have spat on had Aiden not looked like the man they'd once buried in shame. My jaw clenched. "You disowned me," I said quietly. "And now you want a slice of the legacy that belongs to my son." My father looked away. My mother whispered, "Please just think about it." I smiled coldly. "Oh, I am thinking about it. In fact, I've already started drawing up plans." She looked relieved. "You'll help us." I leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. "Number, I'll make sure you never see a single cent." Chapter 3. The Legal Trap. After they left, my living room still smelled like desperation and old cologne. I sat for hours at the dining table, barely noticing the coffee going cold in my hand. Aiden played in the next room, oblivious to the generational storm brewing around him. I knew what needed to be done. They thought they could just ask their way back into our lives. But I wasn't the same frightened teenage boy they cast out onto the streets. I had learned how to build, and now I was going to weaponize it. Step 1. Lawyer. Up the next morning, I met with Alina Foster, my attorney for the past 3 years. Sharp as razors and loyal only to the law. I handed her the documents my parents had brought. The copy of the will, the estate filings, the paternity match. She skimmed them silently, then looked up with raised eyebrows. "They think they're going to get guardianship over a minor heir?" she asked. "They must be drunk on audacity," I smirked. "That's why I'm here. I want ironclad protection for my son and a legal moat they can never cross." Step 2. Iron chains and velvet gloves. Alina drafted everything. A revocable trust under my name until Aiden turns 21, ensuring no decisions can be made without my signature. Restraining orders preemptively filed in the event of harassment. A public filing that listed my parents by name as disinherited relatives under the hostile intent clause. And most importantly, a non-disclosure agreement which they'd need to sign if they ever wanted to come near Aiden again. The moment they violated it, they'd lose access to anything related to the estate. It was tight, legal, bulletproof. Step 3. The bait. I invited them to a meeting at a neutral office, one with cameras, glass walls, and witnesses. When they arrived, they looked oddly dressed up. My mother in a fake pearl necklace. My father in a too-tight blazer from the 9 South. They sat across from me and Alina. I slid a folder across the table. These are your terms if you want any contact with Aiden. Sign it, and you get to attend his birthday party next week. Violate a single clause, and you'll be blocked from his life permanently. They read through it. My father palled. My mother tried to smile through her panic. But why all this? She said, we just want to be part of his life. Alina cut in coolly. Because you once threw him and his father out like trash. Now you want to ride the inheritance train like nothing ever happened. That's not how this works. They hesitated, wavered, then signed, hook, line, and contractually. Gagged. Step 4. The public reveal. The next day, I hosted a small celebration, not for Aiden's birthday, but for a milestone I'd been quietly working on. I bought the home I was kicked out of. It had gone on sale 6 months earlier, abandoned, and foreclosed. I renovated it, polished the floors, restored the walls, then hosted a backyard party, inviting old family friends, former neighbors, mentors who had stepped in when my parents turned away. And when my mother and father showed up, NDA signed. And masks on? I handed Aiden the microphone. He looked at the crowd, then up at me. I nodded. This house, he said, was where my dad got kicked out. But now we live here. We won. The applause was deafening. My parents were frozen, stuck behind their forced smiles, bound by signatures, and drowning in shame. Chapter 4. A Legacy. Reclaimed that night after the party ended and the last cars pulled away. I stood in the old living room alone. The same one where my father had once screamed, "Get out! You've disgraced us." Only now the walls were warmer, the silence kinder. And I was the one who belonged. Aiden was upstairs, curled up with his new dog, a golden retriever we rescued together. He named him Lucky. The irony wasn't lost on me. A quiet confrontation. The next morning, I invited my parents to stay behind and talk one final time. Sat across from me at the same dining table where years ago they had signed me away emotionally, financially, and spiritually. My mother broke the silence first. We didn't know how to react back then, she whispered. We thought we were doing the right thing. I didn't flinch. You mean saving face in front of the community? Kicking your son out to protect your reputation? My father rubbed his hands together nervously. We've changed, son. I leaned in. Number, you got caught in your own irrelevance. That's not change. That's desperation. They looked down, speechless. And then I said the words I had been waiting years. To say you're not part of our future, this house, my house, isn't your sanctuary. Aiden deserves better than the kind of love that can vanish over embarrassment. Final acts of freedom. In the weeks that followed, I finalized every loose end. Their visitation agreement was nullified. They had violated the spirit of the NDA by gossiping with extended family, which was caught via forwarded messages and screenshots. I donated half the estate earnings to shelters for single fathers and youth support programs, organizations that had once helped me when I was sleeping in my car. Eating from vending machines. The other half was locked in a trust for Aiden, with a letter I wrote for him to read on his 18th birthday, telling him everything, not to create resentment, but to show him the strength he came from. And finally, I had the old family portraits professionally reframed, replacing the ones from my childhood that showed smiling liars with photos of me and Aiden hand in hand, building Lego castles, cooking breakfast, dancing in the rain. Because legacy isn't what you're born into, it's what you fight for. Epilogue closure. Years passed, Aiden grew taller than me, kind, thoughtful, brilliant. He asked me once, "Do you ever think about them?" I nodded. Sometimes. What would you say to them now? I smiled gently. Nothing. I already said everything that mattered. By living a good life, that was the final revenge. Not just the legal wins, not just the property or inheritance, but the peace, the dignity, the legacy I reclaimed from the ashes of betrayal and rebuilt into something my son could stand on with. Pride, was this revenge perfectly justified? Tell us what you would have done in the comments below. Like the story, share it with someone who needs this energy, and subscribe to Lauren's Story for more jaw-dropping tales of betrayal and justice. Because here, every lie has its reckoning, and every betrayal finds its shadow. Stay sharp, stay strong, and stay tuned.